So apparently somebody projected this idea, what's with the skull more? I said, well, it's like yoga play. And they go, well, skull's not yoga. I said, well, the way they kill people, yes, it is. All right, they're deep state. Yoga's deep state. So what essentially is Ilhan Omar's people and her are in receipt of disinformation. Again, I cautioned the Trump administration and the Republicans about arguing about disinformation. Disinformation is disinformation. And yes, I understand the fact that we have laws. To just willy-nilly throw out the term disinformation would be something like the Soviets would use. Right, just needs to, their disinformation, but then say everybody else is. Putin still does that. Right. So, I mean, in other things, the old reversal. But again, she doesn't have all information. She obviously believes what she's hearing and seeing, and that's the fact that if ICE releases you, you're innocent, and they never should have detained you. That's a lie. People are detained all the time until they know. Like, if they think you're following them, you're going to be detained until they know you're not a threat at a certain level. Again, you're still a threat. Right. So when you go in there, you don't want to go in there. You want to stay away from ICE, believe me, because there's a file on you, and there should be. You're committing a crime. Right. But again, the bottom line is, where are we with these crimes? What are we going to do about these people? Well, this person's, part of the St. Mary's Church Brigade. We're not going to detain her and charge her, but she'll be she'll be a little bit uncomfortable for 24 hours. It's just how law enforcement works. Right. There's only so much, that they can let go, because if you let it go, then it deteriorates into anarchy, which is where you are. There is also an argument. Again, yes, Sotomayor was in here, and she is concerned about the young people ruining the futures of their lives or going even to prison, because she believes that the protests are outside of what the Supreme Court would allow, so there's nothing she can do for you when you get there with your case, whatever it is. Well, you have to be careful, because the places you all would protest are places of law enforcement. So again, the Supreme Court doesn't really allow you within the court building, and you have to, there's certain rules about protesting there or you get arrested. Well, but you don't have a vigil at the Supreme Court doing what you're doing to law enforcement 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So again, you can't really look at what's happened around those cases 100%. Well, because they allow a certain amount of incorrect protest. Everybody does. And then they say, okay, this is becoming a trend. We have to stop it. So they're going to take you in. You could be charged, but again, how does it work? Do you know how law enforcement works? Officer on the street says there's a crime. They detain you. They take you in. The attorneys look at the case. A couple other people might look at the case and say yes or no. Plenty of people have been detained, by the next morning they're released. Sometimes disorderly conduct. Again, what you're doing is disorderly conduct, okay? You're violating the noise ordinances, and it's disorderly conduct. You say, well, the state isn't going to charge us. But if it is disorderly conduct, if it is violating noise, you're not simply there observing law enforcement. You're not allowed to protest an act of law enforcement operation. The statutes have defined it as crime. Well, charge me. Well, they're not going to charge all of you, but some of you might get charged. But there's nothing you're going to be able to do to sue ICE. If you go to ICE's internal policy, you will not be able to sue them, because there's a reason they do everything. It's based upon historical data, training, experience, all sorts of things. You're saying that you're just this, but you're not to them. You become a threat. Also, they have some of your chat logs. You're all lying. Ilhan Omar needs to be careful, because if they pull out the chat log, which they're not going to do now because they don't want people to see that, they are threatening ICE with bodily harm. Not everybody that threatens ICE with bodily harm will be arrested. Not everybody that threatens ICE with bodily harm will be arrested immediately. Not everybody that threatens ICE with bodily harm will be arrested and charged, and they might get let go 1 or 2 times. If ICE takes you in and you're online, if you're online all day talking shit about ICE and wanting to kill them, they might arrest you and detain you for 24 hours and let you go. And then watch your online. Okay, you disappeared, fine. You're not saying that anymore. So again, law enforcement has a lot of tools, including detention. They're allowed to detain you if it's reasonable suspicion, probable cause. I think when it comes to an immigrant, right, it's actually below reasonable suspicion. I believe it's good faith. You just have to, in good faith, believe something. Again, we would probably call it reasonable suspicion, but I think I don't even think the law goes to reasonable suspicion. It actually goes to just a good faith belief that somebody's, an immigrant, they're an immigrant. If I let them go, they're going to run. And I need to go through the process, whatever that process is. It doesn't say that they have to actually charge you with a crime or deport you. They're allowed to temporarily hold you until they believe that everything is kosher, and then they can let you go if they want. Now, you can go to the judge and say, Judge, immigration judge, I am not going to flee, or I am not an unlawful immigrant. All right. But see, what you're mistakenly believing is that if they release you, you somehow won this argument. You didn't. And that's where these lawsuits are coming from. The lower court judges are part of the bullshit. Right. If you notice, a ton of them are immigrants. Again, it's like judge shopping. And Judge Sotomayor, again, she's not speaking out. She's not necessarily directly speaking to me in any way. We're not going, hey, Judge, what do you think? It's just a kind of a mind meld that happens, and she might know that I'm psychic and give it a try. Right. Well, it appears that her concern is not that you're young people, you have this idea is a valid idea, but your application is not going to get you anywhere. And in fact, get some of you arrested, some of you in prison, some of you a ruined future. Her point of view, as far as I can understand, and I don't know what time and space it comes from, it comes from the future after it all falls apart. It's called a touchback. Right. Is that if you are driven like that, she appreciates it, but there's a time and place for it. And through life, you'll find time and place if you can go through the system and get your jobs and your money and all of that. So for her, or what her spirit, whatever it is, you're ruining your future of really being able to effectuate what you want to effectuate. They may not even admit you to the federal bar if you became an attorney. Just seeing too many young people being misinformed and then endangering their future. She agrees with the argument, but she doesn't agree with the rest. So again, Clarence Thomas did the same thing. At least that was the visual inside, that Republicans were going in directions where they couldn't help. And it could just happen. I'm part of the Federalists and all that. So, again, they don't acknowledge my existence, and that's their problem, not mine. Right. Have to pay in hell. Right. Or at least purgatory. Thank you, Larry. So you have a lot of or disinformation. Mats is what disinformation is really what it is. And again, disinformation is covered by law, but we don't generally prosecute it. Somebody's out there disinforming, and some people we can't reach because they're in Russia, China, and other places. Right. Yeah, Russians always laugh. Hey, we got you more. If I didn't have like Russian and Romanian bloodlines, they would hate me, and Lithuanian, they'd hate me even more. They know the truth. There's no real Russia, Romania, Ukraine. Right. There's a bunch of mixed peoples from Europe and the Caucasus people, I guess you would call us. Right. But again, they have the Asian side to them too. Right. They conquested that area. Right. I think they took Mongolia back over. Did they take Mongolia back over, like in spirit? I had them getting closer to the U.S., and I think it went the other direction. Oh, you gotta manicure it. You can't, State Department's got a big job, and sometimes they got a little mind. Can't have a little big job, right? Make Nixon great again. I'm not a MAGA person, but I'm a Nixon person. Yeah, they operated him. That's what that whole thing is. He was hit by the deep state because he was trying to rein in the CIA and the FBI to be subservient to the president. Imagine that. Well, because they were out of control. You knew they were out of control, right? Now, I used some of the same methods, and that got him in trouble. Yeah, Liddy's an idiot. No, Nixon. Given. See, that's another thing. Given his entire presidency, he'd have been able to do the right thing, right? It would just take more time to get there. Right. I mean, he was already making deals with China. It took us how many years to get back to that? And again, we're bunked out again, right? Nah, the answer is to make deals with China and Russia, get past the wars. And then again, the problem is if we don't work with China, third world countries are going to make deals with China because it's going to fix their country. And again, it's not always bad. It just depends what China's intentions are. If China just wants to make money and be big, there's no problem. But there's no even reason to worry about Taiwan. I mean, I don't even get it. You got the most landmass of like everybody. Well, if you would drop the argument and make friends with with Taiwan, you probably wouldn't even care. You got Hong Kong and everything else. Right. Agreed. And that's probably be the key. Again, I'm not telling you to be, subversive or con trickster about it, but I think that's how they got Hong Kong, right? They were acting friendly. Oh, hi, everybody. Let's make money together. And then when they made the money, they made a bigger navy. Wait a minute. Nah, Chinese people don't want to fight. The people, right? I'm not sure. I think that it's the Communist Party, but I don't know. Right. Because I don't even think it's the generals. They give a shit. Right. No, Z, I don't think Z, I might be wrong, but I don't think Z's running China. I really don't. He's just a figurehead. Correct. Thank you, Larry. The disappearance squads are running China. Pretty much. No, because it isn't even there. We have all the answers. We just need to stop the wars. Again, that's why the wars are occurring. Satan's causing the wars. Right? We have the answers to all this investment. Third world countries. The Silk Road is valid, but we should be with that. We should be part of the Silk Road, not subserviently, but as partners in the Silk Road, because there's a larger what's the word I'm looking for? Effectuation. I don't know if it's a larger outcome of Silk Road that is beneficial to the entire planet. I'm glad to see Brazil has embraced another route or something. They need that. We need that. Well, there's no other way to I mean, it is going to, they could transport narcotics, but then again, it's, they're going to go up on that road. We'll do interdiction. Brazil will learn interdiction a little better than they're doing it now. Again, when you get with Brazil, Brazil needs to learn interdiction instead of just having to go into these slums and wage war. Right. So I think Brazil, that's what I'm seeing right now. Brazil needs to learn better interdiction. And again, China appears to want to come along to eradicate narcotics. I think, as far as Mao and the concepts of social ills, right? I think you may have been able to trigger them to look at. I mean, again, psychological warfare and chemical warfare, as far as a spycraft thing, is one thing. But I think they're beginning to wonder about the social ill side of it and their contribution to social ills, and as far as where Mao sits and all that. Right. Well, there's no need to conquest the United States. There's no need to conquest Russia. There's no need to conquest China. There just needs to come, again, this age-old agreement concept. Right. Now, the wars are so stupid. Again, getting rid of narcos is a valid war. Again, it isn't this long, drawn-out thing. And in fact, the mistake in Afghanistan was not to have a coalition, which is strange because his father had a coalition. No, we shouldn't have only been in there. There should have been, even, I don't know, we may have been able to convince Pakistan. If we say, look, all we want is this, a government that doesn't kill people. Well, an active part in the battle. Again, the answer to the Gaza, once Hamas took over, was creating an entity such as Fatah that would agree that Israel, again, if you started using military operation or training military operation with Fatah, IDF, eventually all differences would have disappeared, and we would have went in and pushed Fatah out, Hamas out. Right? There was no good faith effort from Israel once Omar's plan was destroyed. Again, of course, Omar, now you're going to prison. I mean, come on. Oh, well, whoever heard of real estate deals with prime ministers and presidents? Whoever heard anything like that? I mean, it's bullshit. Right. They were just all mad. Right. No, he was engaged in a mitzvah, and they punished him for mitzvah. Omer. Right. Well, he made a mistake, but it's not something that they've ever prosecuted before. Thank you, Larry. So again, they're trying Well, Bibi started going in the right direction, and then they charged him with something, and then he lost focus, and then that's when a few years later, October something happened. Whatever, X6, whatever it is, or 7, I don't know which one it is. Next one will be 8th, J6, October 7th. Who knows? January 9th, I don't know, or 8th, whatever it is. All right. Or no, actually, it's the wrong month. It would be, I guess, April 8th or something. Hey, is there a code in that? Wait a minute. Let me see. J6 is 1-6. Ah, shit. There might be actually something in there. The other one is October 7th, which is 10/7. Oh, there is a code in there. Did I bring up 10/7 before? They may have killed me before I got it online. Police code 10/7. I think I brought it up before, but I'm not sure. So again, we're way behind. Again, every time we go to move forward, we end up going backwards. Again, we're going to have to get tough with the narcos and get rid of them. They're destroying, they're causing social ills. They're destroying. As far as China, if China's part of that mechanism in any way, including, just manufacturing or something, in the Chinese social credit system, they lose credit. So it's going to affect their ability to succeed. If you're causing narcotics use in China, your social credit goes down. Theoretically, I don't know if it's an honest system. Right? Like I said, if you use FBI psychology on FBI agents, they all fail. Right? Believe you me, I know from the inside. It's just a discriminator people can use to discriminate, right? Well, because if they don't apply it to you, then they don't apply it, right? That's what the scam is. Apply it to whoever we want to apply it to, and then everybody else gets a free pass when they're actually the real thing. It's like a social credit system, but it's a bullshit social credit system. Right. No, I can't. And as far as working with God, I can't come against Silk Road as a valid as being not valid. It's valid. It's just conquest. I don't know. Well, because if they build those roads, we could use them. So it doesn't mean that they're gonna be able to conquest anybody with those roads. But we do need a road that goes east-west in South America, because we need to pick the people up, right? That'll help cut costs in the long run, probably, right? As far as moving goods, people, again, might be able to do some more better interdiction on those highways, right? But hopefully, we can. I think if we get everybody on board, there's nowhere for them to hide. Then it's over, and anybody that's corrupt in those countries, they get put out. Well, because these are people. Again, Hashem showed me that these are people that are missing. That's why nothing's happening. That makes any sense. So, we're behind in so many different things. Because the narco and Satan target people together. So when they're kids, they're targeting our best people, so they never get anywhere. It's like me when I was a kid. They used other things to target me. Right? Abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Right? That's another thing Satan uses. Face it, you're all idiots. And I'm not. But you won't let me get anywhere. Right. 100%. And that's the scam. Because I have money, I'm a genius kind of deal. Right, Elon? What the hell is a fag war? Refrigerator there. So it turns out they were blocking me from buying a certain piece of furniture, and there's no doubt. Right. But the replacement pieces of furniture are more money, so I have to make that decision. I'll probably do it. Probably look better. No, you don't get credit for that. And it'll even be more money because I have to put legs. I'm going to put legs on it. It's better when you put legs on it. A lot of furniture looks kind of wimpy until you put legs on it. Right, cheaper furniture. Even some better furniture. Sometimes it's better wood and better materials, but it's not it's not artistically or aesthetically any more pleasing. Well, the price is probably going to drop on what I'm looking at, but I wanted to get the storage in here as soon as possible. I have one piece of furniture I'm going to try to probably give away. It's just, it kind of works for me, but the color doesn't. If it was spring, I might have already painted it. All right, so a little warmer yesterday and today, but it's going to start dropping. All right, actually, maybe today it may have cooled a little bit. All right, I guess it cooled today. But we have some warmer days next Wednesday. In a few days, we have some really cold days, and then it's going to warm up again. Back to, I guess, it would be normal temperatures for this area, which is much appreciated. We agree, sir. So again, it doesn't even fit with the ideals of our nation. What's going on? So, it's just China and Taiwan is bullshit. There isn't it. In fact, China could do so well, there's no reason to even focus on it. It doesn't make any sense. Now, if they're working for CIA and that bugs you, you're not going to beat it by beating them up. You have to go the other direction. Right. Thank you, Larry. A lot of times that's the problem. Nobody will talk about it, but spies are like a pain in the derriere. They get mad because they might be helping the United States move against China, right? Which, again, I understand, but there's a way to work that out, right? Again, Israel, Palestine, acknowledge one another's existence, and in the long run, it probably won't even matter in the future of the world if we all get forward. And the younger generation looks like they might be able to do it. Right. Well, if you give up selfishness, it becomes more apparent how this is all going to work. Right. The governments are going to start investing. They have to. There's no other way to do what they need to do. Right. Unless you tax your people at a higher rate, and that's kind of getting old for a lot of people. Right. Again, there is corruption, so there will be corruption in that program. But again, I think the money made by the nations is going to outweigh the corruption. It's going to outpace the corruption. But you have to, you just have to get it cleaned up so there isn't, they aren't stealing from the fund all day. Like if Argentina actually invested its money, they'd have been able to steal all that money. And nobody would have noticed. Because people would have had stuff, Well, right. There's a downturn. So again, if you take that downturn and you start moving, like Trump's doing with the sovereign fund, it's eventually going to work, right? Again, there has to be a payback to government. Recent change to my billing address. What the hell does that mean? Oh, maybe it's probably an initial letter. In Pennsylvania, it's really weird. Like you have an inspection 3 months after you move in. something like that. Right. Well, they sent me I started an account with them, and they received an address, and then they sent a letter to that address saying that there's been a change in my address, but there's no change. It's the initial address. Unless there was something went on in the account weird where it changed. Sometimes that happens. Right. All right, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.